Over the long history of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club, numerous legends have emerged about it and its members. They are often referred to as criminals, rapists, drug dealers, and so on. However, in its original form, it is not a criminal organization, but rather a biker club. Today, we will present you the top 10 important traditions of this legendary club. Becoming a member of the club is a lengthy process that can take years. The main reason for this is that once you become a member, you cannot leave. Membership is lifelong. The readiness of a candidate to join the club is determined by all members through voting. Many bikers from all over the world dream of one day wearing the vest with coveted patches, or rockers as club members call them. However, only a few manage to complete the arduous process. Only after demonstrating loyalty and earning trust, club members gather and vote on granting the candidate's status. If the majority agrees without any objections, the organization adds a new member, but not as a full member, only as a candidate in them, who from now on has the right to call themselves a prospect and wear the corresponding patch. The prospect inscription means potential or promising. Such potential club members perform all sorts of tasks for regular members, from changing the oil in motorcycles to courier duties. In the club, there is a sort of strict hierarchy based on the time spent in the Hells Angels. Newcomers unquestioningly obey more experienced bikers. There is a kind of hazing similar to the military. Thus, the character of a person is tested within the club. As they advance in the hierarchy, members receive corresponding patches that are considered sacred. For a Hells Angels member, the club comes first, and then family, work, career, money, and other worldly matters. Ralph Sonny Barger, the legendary founder and president of the Hells Angels, says that he was often asked about the initiation ritual, and there are wild theories about it. For example, it is said that a club candidate must kill someone to become a Hells Angel. In reality, no such rituals were ever required. One only needs to serve as a prospect. Prospects essentially play the role of errand boys. Before a meeting, they set up tables and chairs, prepare coffee and snacks for officer meetings. There is also a less bloody theory of initiation into Hells Angels. Each new gang member is required to buy a new pair of jeans and a leather jacket, after which the old-timers dump tons of pre-prepared urine and excrement on the newcomer's head. However, this information, often circulating in the yellow press along with other unpleasant versions, is also unconfirmed. As in all other matters, the selection of new Hells Angels members is done with utmost caution, which is why it all takes quite some time. It is believed that a prospect candidate must personally know a full-fledged member for at least 5 years before being considered worthy of club society and awarded the title of support, which means a person supporting the club. Then the support becomes a hang-around, and only after that can he aspire to prospect status. This is followed by a minimum 1-year period, during which the prospect fetches beer, washes club motorcycles, assists during events and outings, in short, does everything to prove their loyalty to the club and desire to become a full-fledged member. Only after this period is a vote conducted, and the prospect receives the coveted member patches. Now let's talk about the dress code traditions of the Hells Angels, which can also be considered as ritual features of this organization. Depending on the chapter, meaning the branch, the Hells Angels have their own strict dress code. For example, in some chapters, members only wear black jeans, in others, only blue jeans, in another, camouflage, and so on. The color specifics of the clothing are used to determine which branch a person belongs to. Quite often, club members are prohibited from wearing shorts. Rocker patches and club colors are impossible to buy in a store with biker attributes. Even if you see patches with the Hells Angels emblem on some shelf, you can be sure that the establishment won't be in business for long. Tough guys wearing those very patches will soon come here and take full action against the owner for damaging the club's reputation and violating copyright. This is because the club's founders were smart enough to patent the classic symbols depicted on the rockers and protect them under copyright law. Thus, bikers don't necessarily have to dismantle the violating store to the ground, although it has happened. In this case, the law is entirely on their side. But even if you manage to buy yourself a winged skull to then proudly display it on your bike jacket, beware. Wearing Hells Angel symbols will draw harsh attention to you wherever you go in any country where the club has chapters, and you are unlikely to face a legal battle. Most likely it will end with the removal of the patch and a brutal beating that you will remember for life. It's almost impossible to see a club member without the colors of the club's patches. Unofficial rules require them to proudly wear the Hells Angels emblem even when going to a bakery. However, officially it is not mandatory, and the dress code is strictly adhered to only at club events and during joint rides. Another major tradition of the Hells Angels is to support each other in any situation. Just like soldiers rely on their comrades in battle, the Hells Angels know that other members will always come to their aid. The club's main law is to stand up for their own under any circumstances, even if it may lead to violent clashes, and who is right or wrong will be sorted out later. Therefore, inadvertently throwing an offensive word towards a Hells Angels member in a bar can result in a massive brawl with unpredictable consequences. Another crucial aspect is that club matters are not to be discussed outside the club's walls. Club meetings address all sorts of important matters except for illegal activities. Club safety is paramount, so criminal topics are completely avoided. Although the Hells Angels categorically refuse to consider themselves a criminal organization, they admit that some members may be involved in certain activities. Therefore, discussing criminal activities within the club or in any other way that could tarnish the reputation of the entire organization is strictly forbidden. According to Sonny Barger, law enforcement categorizes the club as criminal simply because it is easier for them to prosecute the whole organization rather than individual culprits of crimes. And this seems quite likely, as the police can hardly infiltrate the club, as we will explain later. The thing is, the strict rules have created a highly effective barrier for law enforcement agencies. One of the main rituals of the Hells Angels is undoubtedly bike riding. Naturally, bikers spend a significant amount of time on their motorcycles and often travel together. On the road, a strict hierarchy is observed with military precision. The chapter president always rides in the front, even if it puts them at the greatest risk in possible encounters. Next is usually the vice president, followed by the road captain, leading the column in the absence of higher-ranking members, and the club's security officer. After that, as Sonny Barger recounts in his autobiography, the movement becomes more chaotic. After the officers, it's basically a free race, a struggle for position. Everyone tries to get into the top 10. The other positions are not so prestigious. And of course, candidates always ride at the end of the column. On the road, the order remains unchanged, and everyone adheres to the formation created. And since the Hells Angels never leave a club member behind, they usually stop together, for example, when a police officer stops one of the bikers. Another important ritual element for club members is the oath and loyalty to it. Candidates are pre-disqualified for certain things. For example, a person can never become a Hells Angel if they have been a rapist or involved with minors, even if they serve their sentence. The club is closed to law enforcement personnel, even those who have unsuccessfully tried to join the police force years ago. Submitting an application to become a police officer automatically makes you unworthy of wearing the club's patch. One might think that this rule is in place to make it easier for bikers to engage in various criminal activities, but it's not that simple. Loyalty to the club is crucial for the Hells Angels, so they will not accept anyone who has sworn allegiance to another organization or cause. An important tradition that has been part of the Hells Angels since the time of the Beatles is providing control and security at rock concerts. Quite often, well-known rock bands invite members of the biker organization to work as security at their concerts. This tradition was established by the Beatles themselves, initiated by George Harrison. Since then, respected music labels feel obligated to invite these brave guys to take on responsible positions in organizing their performances, especially for concerts at large biker gatherings. The initiation process into the Hells Angels takes many years, in part to ensure that only truly devoted and committed motorcyclists become full patch members in the end. Therefore, voluntary departure from the Hells Angels is only possible in case of death. In this case, the deceased club member is accompanied on their final journey by a multi-kilometer procession of bikers, and they are buried wearing their vest with patches. However, the club acknowledges that some members may have to distance themselves due to legal issues so as not to bring trouble to other participants. Some are expelled from the club for violating the code, and if for some it results in simply removing the vest and continuing with a peaceful life, other offenders are forced to cover up tattoos with Hell's Angel symbolism, and if they don't do it themselves, the angels may take matters into their own hands with available means. True, in history of Hell's Angels, there are those who retired voluntarily, and one of the most famous examples is George Christie's departure from the organization. The former president explained the reasons for his departure and believed that he left the club on good terms. However, after some time when he tried to attend a club event, he was turned away at the gate. For the other angels, there was no such thing as living on good terms, and all contacts with the men who once considered him a brother were severed. It is an unwavering rule to adhere to certain prohibitions. Members of Hell's Angels are forbidden to work in prisons and the police force to avoid conflicts of interest. It's no secret that bikers often break the law, engaging in petty criminal activities. Membership in the society is kept secret. As we have already mentioned, you can't leave the group. You can only be expelled for breaking the rules. The chapter essentially becomes a biker's second family, and often the first and only one. As you know, Hell's Angels is a highly secretive organization. Bikers don't want their personal affairs to become public knowledge, so club members are prohibited from communicating with the media. This is another well-known prohibition, although Sonny Barger admits in his autobiography that there are other rules and parts of the Hell's Angels code that cannot even be disclosed to outsiders. In 2009, during the annual summer gathering in Carlton, Minnesota, the club's position regarding the media was demonstrated quite vividly. At the event, which was attended by about 500 bikers, there were numerous reporters trying to get at least a short comment. However, the Hells Angels always ended the conversation if a representative of the media approached and simply turned their back to them. As for women, they cannot become bikers or members of the club. However, female partners are not prohibited from being on club premises, especially if they are the wives or girlfriends of club members. Being an integral part of the biker lifestyle, these women are affectionately called old ladies, and in the early years of Hells Angels' existence, they were even allowed to wear coveted patches. However, even the most respected female partners have the right to attend gatherings only on special occasions, because in the words of Sonny Barger himself, Hells Angels are still pushy men and chauvinistic pigs, and that's how it has always been. Hells Angels also rely on women in key positions in law enforcement agencies and rival gangs to gather intelligence. The information obtained is vital for the organization, and the club has female spies who work as aviation dispatchers and even serve in the army. And finally, with regards to prohibitions, Hells Angels members are not allowed to join another biker club, and sometimes there is also a prohibition on associating with members of other motorcycle clubs. Of course, one of the main ritual elements of the motorcycle club is the bike itself. Naturally, each club member must own a motorcycle. Traditionally, bikers prefer heavy touring motorcycles from Harley-Davidson, but Sonny Barger admits in his autobiography that there is no rule obligating them to ride only bikes from this manufacturer. The former president is quite critical of Harleys and even calls them a piece of junk from a technical point of view, claiming that many other members would agree. But even if Japanese motorcycles are better in every way, he says that Hells Angels will never give up their Harleys, not only because of tradition, but also out of patriotic support for a domestic manufacturer. Barger also highlights the special love for the characteristic roar of the Harley-Davidson engine and its powerful torque and low revs. And finally, how can you pay homage and respect to the traditions and rituals of the club if you miss its meetings? Attending weekly gatherings is a mandatory condition for club membership, where various matters related to the organization and its participants are discussed, such as how to deal with the police or the media. As George Christie mentioned, such meetings may also address personal issues, for example, if a club member has problems with drugs or alcohol, which may result in disciplinary action. If a club member misses a meeting without a valid reason, they are required to pay a fine of $50 to $100. That's all from us. Subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up, bye-bye.